Hi there, warriors. So we are on day 4 of our 3-part series. The series is titled Living Life Transformed. We're in part 1 this week. So we've been here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday, and I'll be back tomorrow for the final day of our first series. The first series is called Untelling Your Story, how to untell your story. And today we're going to be talking about the survivor story. So Monday, what we did, if you haven't watched the videos, you can scroll down on this page and find them. I've got them all listed, like what day it is. So you should be able to follow them in order. But on Monday, what we did is we started to dream and talk about what it is God's vision is for our lives. And we did an exercise where we actually journaled and called on God to share his vision for our lives. And so then on day 2, what we did is we thought, okay, now we know where we're heading. We know where he's calling us. So what's keeping us from getting there? And we exposed our victim stories and that trap that our victim story has that keeps us from getting where we're going, basically. And then on yesterday, Wednesday, we talked about a way to help combat that victim story in us that surfaces, those lies. Now we only have 2 days left. So today we're talking about the survivor story. Really quickly, I'm going to talk about the survivor story, and I'm going to bundle it with the ways in which you will combat that by living in your promises for today and tomorrow. Okay, so I want you to be able to combat that story rather quickly. It's a little less sensitive sometimes than the victim story, but it's also harder to get over because it's the survivor story is well loved. People love a survivor and they love the survivor stories, and you can always find people to champion around you with that story. But is it keeping you from stepping into God's purpose and calling for your life? That's the question, right? So how do we what is that? What is that story? How do we get rid of it? How do we start walking forward in today's promises and tomorrow's promises now? And that's it. And then tomorrow I'll come on here and we will bless and release you. You'll make your commitment and say, yes, God, I'll go. And if you need prayer for anything, I'll be able to do that with you tomorrow. So we'll just send you on your way tomorrow, and with like special gifts and exciting news. Okay, so here we go. So let me ask you, are you going through storms? Do you know, like when I say that you're going through storms or there's storms in life, what I'm talking about, right? Well, a survivor story goes through a lot of storms, a lot. Okay, now I don't want you to get upset. Hang in till the end, because I'm not saying we won't go through storms, we do. But the survivors seem to be in a continual loop of storms, okay? They're the ones who will always have something going on, right? Always have, we say they attract crisis. They always have a crisis. They always have something very big to tackle. And the truth is I do believe that the devil throws attacks at us, okay? But here's what I want to challenge. I want to challenge that not all attacks have to turn into storms, okay? Not all attacks actually even have to be received. And so let's talk about that for a little bit, okay? So the survivor loop is, I'm going through something, I've overcome it. I'm going through something, I've overcome it. I'm going through something, I've overcome it. And eventually you have to step out of that. Like, yeah, but here's the thing, is that when you step out of it, the devil is going to attack you stepping into your purpose and your calling, because he doesn't want you there. Remember the perpetual fork in the road we talked about? He's been trying to steer you as far away from your calling since before you were even born. He put out a plan of attack to keep you from that. So every time you take a step back onto it, remember Peter stepped on the water, and then what? He saw the storms, like the storms coming, right? So yes, attacks will hit, but let me just challenge you that that you don't have to claim the attack. It doesn't have to be your storm. Now, there will be storms that we have to go through, and there will be storms that make us more reliant on Christ, and especially if we start becoming overly reliant on ourselves and not needing him and pushing, especially in those moments, you will face absolute real storms, and you're going to learn so much in them. But you do not have to claim every attack as your storm. Do you know how badly, in fact, I wanted to claim this week's attack on my physical health? I mean, I wanted to claim it. I wanted to be like, I can't go on live. I've been sick every single day that I've been on live this week, right? I haven't been sick in like a year, and yet I just got hit with like a stomach virus that turned into like an actual cold flu thing, and I've been really not feeling well. So yeah, I wanted to not do this week. I wanted to claim that sickness, and on top of that, and this is why I think I got attacked, something miraculous happened, right? Like, I am an unlikely author. There's a long story behind that. I've written a book and it's in there. So there's a long story behind why I would say I'm an unlikely author, but people kept prophesying over me to write my book, write my story. And so I finally did that as an act of obedience. But it's a memoir, and people don't really like memoirs. They want to hear about them and not you. And so I had already gotten feedback that it was an unlikely book. Okay, it's an unlikely book. And I wanted to go the traditional route because I believed God called me to it, right? So it must be him. And so I sent one letter to one agent. And in part, it's because I felt like God highlighted her and that it was going to be the right agent that I was sending this letter to. Hi, Heidi. Good to see you again. We're talking about untelling our survivor story, and I'll get more into that in a second, but I'm explaining how not every enemy's attack has to be taken as a storm. And so I sent this letter to one agent, and like I said, in part it could be because God highlighted it and that it's my faith in him, but there's always this other side of me, right, that I'm tackling that victim story, that if I send it to one person and they don't accept it, then I just, it didn't work. I'll just self-publish. It didn't get picked up. No big deal. That I'm used to, right? So like I said, I'm used to rejection. So I could have been setting myself up for that rejection. So I sent it to one agent, and people usually send their queries to tons of agents. Okay. I sent it to one, and I did pray over the, the selection of the agent, and I did let God lead in that agent. So I sent that to her on a Thursday night, and got sick on the weekend, like horribly sick. And then by Monday morning, I had received a response from her and a request for a full proposal, which I hadn't written. I hadn't written it because in my brain, it was never going to get accepted. I was never going to be invited. So I have had to write that proposal this week and come on live this week, stepping out in 2 acts of obedience. And so, of course, I was hit with a physical illness, and I've been really sick, and I could use that attack, and I could claim that attack. In fact, I was driving around yesterday, and my son was like, have you finished your proposal? And I was like, I can't. And as soon as I heard the words I can't come out of my mouth, I thought, that's it. I fell into my victim loop. I'm not sick. I'm doing this. And so today I rebuked that attack is not my storm. I'm not going to go through that. I'm actually going to keep stepping in obedience. That we will get some storms, like I said, that we will learn a lot through, and that it will train us up on how to be reliant on God. But every attack of the enemy is not your story. The attacks the enemy sends you, those aren't your story, and they're not even your storm sometimes. We don't need to claim them. He wanted to send illness, my physical illness, my way to distract me, and I just said, you know what? I'm not having it. I'm not claiming that. I'm not, that's it. I'm not too sick to do the things that God has called me to this week. And so just remember that we have power to rebuke those attacks, and we have methods by which we can protect ourselves from them. Now, again, you have to be willing to say, all right, I'm going to give you my ashes for your beauty, God. Here's my ashes. Give me the beauty. You have to be able to let go of the ashes. And if your ashes are a survivor story, and you're comfortable in the survivor story, you will keep attracting crisis, because you'll continue to claim every attack as a crisis for you. You'll keep claiming it as your story. You'll keep claiming it as a storm you have to go through. And I'm just telling you right now, every attack is not designed to be your storm. We don't have to accept them. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you. The fact, the enemy will attack. The more you step out in faith, the more you're going to see it. Okay, false, the attack's not your story. It's not. God's already called you to something well before this attack. And when you've stepped out in faith, you're walking in that calling. When the attack now becomes your story, please pray for me. Oh my gosh, I overcame it again. Oh, please pray for me. I overcame. When your story becomes the continual overcomer, you're actually not in your calling anymore. So rebuke those attacks, step into your calling, okay? Now, let's see. I don't want to forget anything, so let me double check. And actually I covered everything except for the way we're going to battle that. So here's an exercise that we do in my private community. We have an encouragement community for the people who are working through my journal, which, by the way, I just knocked down to cost. Like the system won't even allow me to drop the price any lower. So if anybody wants that journal to join this encouragement community where you'll get more ongoing support from other women as you step into your calling, just hit me up in the comments, send me a private message, and I'll link you to it. But what we do in that community is we practice telling ourselves 10 truths every single day. Like, get up in the morning, spend time with God, let him speak to you, listen to him, journal, read some scripture, get into scripture. And then the next thing you're going to do before you even do your to-do list is write 10 truths about you today. 10 truths, okay? And these are the truths that are true. These are the promises that have been given to you for today and the promises that have been given to you for tomorrow. So what that looks like is, you know, sometimes I want to say like, oh, like, for instance, I'm battling physical health issues right now. So what I do is I wrote this morning, I am healed. I am healthy. Those are my truths. I'm claiming them now. Okay, I'm claiming them now. I'm going to walk out as a healed and healthy person today. And then the truths about tomorrow, right? The truths about tomorrow. God gave me a command. He said to write your story. It was prophesied over me. People keep telling me. I have tons of notes that people have given me saying, God told me to tell you to write your story. So that was an act of obedience. So even though I don't have a lot of confidence in me and my writing and what I can do, I have confidence that if God's called me to something, it's going to be huge, right? So I write. The book's published. The book's published and it's reaching masses. Maybe even the book's a New York Times bestseller. My feelings aren't hurt if it's not, but it's God's story and it's his message and I want it to reach people because he said to do it. So I write that as my promise for tomorrow. He's promised that if he's called you to do something, he's going to breathe life on it. He's promised that when we act in obedience, that he's going to return fruits. You know, we're going to bear fruits from our obedience. So I believe those things. So those are the promises, 10 of them, okay? I'm a mighty warrior. I have confidence. I am stepping firmly in my calling, right? I'm reaching people for Jesus. What are the promises that you need to cling to, right? 10 of them every single morning. If you could do that for the next 30 days, and it doesn't even have to be 30, do it 5 days a week, at least 5 days a week. And if you could do that, you would be shocked at how you prioritize your day and how you respond to the attacks that the enemy sends your way. Because when he sends an attack that speaks up against the promise that you just spoke to yourself in the morning, you know, like, wait, oh, that's a lie. I'm not taking that. I'm not receiving that. But if you wake up in poor spiritual health and those attacks come, they start to confirm your internal dialogue. You've built a life that was designed on lies about you. And if you don't start telling the truth about yourself, you'll never be able to rebuke those lies when they head your way, okay? So you're going to recognize the enemy's attacks because you're going to know the truths that you stand in. You're going to be able to tell the difference between the attacks and the storms, okay? Will you go through storms in life? Absolutely, yes. Is every attack of the enemy your storm to go through? No, not at all. You don't have to. You have permission to tell him to back off, okay? So that is it for today. If anybody needs any prayers, please put it in the comments. I'm praying for all of you. Please take time to let me know if you want information about the online group that we have or if there's anything else we can do. Remember, tomorrow here, 12:15, I bless and release you into your callings. Okay, that's the end of part 1. Part 2 will happen in November, the first week of November. So much love to all of you. Thank you again, Heidi. Talk to you guys later. Bye. Mwah.